about our judicial candidates, but here she is. She's speaking for all of them almost. So here she is. Y'all please welcome Ms. Jane.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Chang. I am the candidate for Texas Supreme Court Place 6. I want to thank USW for hosting this wonderful event. Now, I am running for the judicial race. For those of you who are not familiar with the judicial race, there's nothing sexy about it, folks. Okay? I know we all are in a major concern about the legislative race, but in reality, the judicial race is equally important because at the end of the day, whatever happens on the legislative side, the judicial justices and judges are the ones who interpret the law and are applying it accordingly for all Texans. So just to give you an idea of what's going on with the court that I'm running, the Texas Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the state of Texas, we have 9 justices sitting up there, okay? For almost a quarter century, that has composed of justices of one mindset. And that means it's all Republicans, okay? There's no diversity, there's no impartiality when you have only one mindset, and that's a serious problem. Time and time again, when the Supreme Court justices had the opportunity to rule correctly for all Texans, they've got it wrong. Give you an example. A recent case where the Alamo Heights ISD individual was on a daily basis grabbing buttocks in the chest, and the perpetrator would go so far as getting the co-workers to say, hey, let's name the dimples on her buttocks. And also make comments such as, the next time I make love next to the candle you gave me in a gift swap, I'll be thinking of effing you. In that scenario, our Supreme Court justices, the majority, which my opponent was sitting on the majority side, said there is no sexual harassment in the workplace in that scenario. Why? Because they felt that the perpetrator was a same-sex offender and was not homosexual. So what happened was, in that scenario, the Supreme Court, Texas Supreme Court justices looked to the U.S. Supreme Court case on Cal for guidance. And in that case, the U.S. Supreme Court justices found sexual harassment and made the statement that had the perpetrator been homosexual, it would have been even easier to find sexual harassment. Well, our justices on the Texas Supreme Court looked at it and go, wait a minute, so that's an impediment. You have to be homosexual in order to find sexual harassment when it involves same-sex gender situation, which is totally wrong. Then, of course, I'm sure you're all aware of the recent case ruling where they ruled against Laredo for the plastic bag situation where Laredo followed an Attorney General opinion. So Texas Supreme Court justices, not surprisingly, ruled in favor of corporate for the plastic bag, right? So these are the cases that not only affects the parties involved, it affects all of us. So just to give you, put this into perspective, I'm one of 5 candidates running for the statewide judicial races. Okay, on the Texas Supreme Court side, we have Judge R.K. Saniel, Judge Stephen Kirkland, and me. On the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, we have 2 Democratic candidates, Judge Maria T. Jackson and Judge Ramona Franklin. So let's say, hypothetically, traveling around the state, Judge Kirkland decides to grab me. Under the scenario of the justice's ruling, there is no sexual harassment. Because if you know Judge Kirkland, he's an LGBT judge. So the fact that there's no, even though it's different gender, but the fact that he's LGBT doing that, there would be no sexual harassment in the workplace if he did those acts against me. And those are the problems that our justices in their rulings created these flaws, right? So imagine if you're a business owner, okay? How are you going to instruct your employees on what can and cannot be done, what's proper conduct or not in a work setting? What would be considered sexual harassment? It is extremely confusing to small business owners. It is confusing to workers in the environment, what's considered appropriate or not. And that's a huge problem with our Texas Supreme Court. Now, let me just say this. The lack of diversity in the Texas Supreme Court and the Court of Criminal Appeals, I don't mean the Asian American diversity. In case you haven't noticed, I'm Asian American. Okay, but that's not the diversity I'm talking about. It's the diversity of mindset. When you're not able to see things from different perspectives, you cannot interpret the law correctly, right? Because we all know the law is not always black or white. There are shades of gray. And we need people in the office to be able to view things from different perspectives, to be able to see the shades of gray, to clearly interpret the law and applying it for all Texans. Now, why am I running for the position? I am a legal private practitioner for almost 20 years in the greater Houston area. I've handled cases from complex commercial litigation to highly contested family cases, probate cases, real estate tax, criminal law. My passion is in civil law, which is why I ran for the Texas Supreme Court. I'm very good at what I do. I represent people and I make sure that whatever it takes, I get to the end result. But I'm civil about it, I'm professional about it, and I get the job done. But see, practicing in Texas, we're known as the state that's corporate friendly for the courts, as opposed as the state that has impartial courts. So think about it. On the Texas Supreme Court, Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, we have 9 Republicans on both sides. You move that down to the Court of Appeals. We have about 80 justices across the state of Texas. Only about 15 of those justices are Democrats. Okay? So these cases, in personal injury cases where you have jury verdicts, constantly getting overturned. Right? We have a judicial system where people have the title to jury trial, yet when the jury verdict comes in, it gets overturned. Why? Because it's corporate friendly. This is a huge problem, folks. People getting injured, seriously injured, entitled to this judgment rendered by peers from their community are being overturned. And unfortunately, for a lot of these folks, the court of last resort is the Court of Appeals. Because on the Texas Supreme Court, we have the discretion of saying whether we want to hear the case that's being appealed from the middle court. So a lot of folks, when they get to the Court of Appeals, that is their court of last resort. Right? And what I need you all to know is that not only do I want your vote, okay, I need your help in spreading the word, because this is a 254 county statewide race. People are not excited about the judicial race, but I need you all to explain how important it is to your neighbors, to your friends, to all your friends across the state of Texas. Local races are important because we started with home, but then we also need to move up. See, a lot of people talk about down ballot, but in reality, we start at the bottom and move our way up. Okay? People come up to me and say, Kathy, we're so grateful that you're running for a statewide race, all these statewide candidates, but in reality, we're the one who's supposed to thank you guys and all the local candidates for running, because everything starts at home. And what you guys do here is what makes us better up the ballot. And what you guys do, grassroots-wise, phone banking, block walking, sharing about the importance of voting on the midterm election, you guys are doing the hard work. Yes, I have 254 counties to cover, but what you guys do, it's tremendously a great help. And it's what's driven force for me. When I get to a point where I go, gosh, I'm exhausted. This is what, 4th or 5th or 6th event for the evening, and I'm exhausted. But you know what? I think about what you guys do out here on a daily basis to effectuate change. And I go, okay, pick yourself up. One last event. Finish that event. I say to myself, one last event. Then I go to the next event. So you guys are the driving force. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all the statewide candidates for all the things that you do. Now, I just want to say this. How do we achieve this? Okay? As we all know, the Pledge of Allegiance we just did earlier at the opening ceremony. We say this on a regular basis when we do the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's within the Pledge of Allegiance, it has one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Justice for all. In reality, we know justice is not for all. For people of color, for women, justice and equality isn't a reality. Even though this is 2018, it is not a reality, folks. Just because we have these laws for justice, fairness, and equality, it's not a reality unless we fight for it, unless we demand for it. Right now, these are just laws sitting in books, on bookshelves, collecting dust. I mean, how many of you, I see a lot of women here, how many of you ever had someone come up to you and say, you're a woman, you deserve equal rights? Anybody? Not surprisingly, only one of many, or two. How many people of color actually had somebody come up to you and say, you're a U.S. citizen, you're entitled to equality, you're entitled to fairness? Anybody? I'm a U.S. citizen, okay? A U.S. citizen by choice, which means that my parents immigrated into this country, and I took an oath to protect the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution. And that means what I need to do is whatever it takes to make those words, justice, fairness, equality, the justice for all, a reality. So that's why I decided to step out of my comfort zone as a practicing attorney, to do something beyond that. And that's to effectuate change in the judicial system. As a woman, as an Asian American woman, no one has given me any handouts. I've always had to fight and prove myself, whether it's in a courtroom or outside the courtroom. And you know what, folks? It's been, I would say, maybe 30 years since I've been in the U.S. And I've been very successful at fighting and demanding those rights. And that's why I decided to step out of the comfort zone to fight for all Texans. That we need to fight to get that justice, fairness, equality for all. We need to make sure, as women, we demand equality. Because if we don't, we are slapping our founding mothers in the face with respect to the rights that they have fought for us, the right to vote, the right for equality, and the right for fairness that's created by our founding fathers. This state is not a red state. This state is a non-voting state. People vote one of three reasons. They're angry about something, they're fearful about something, or they're passionate about something. For the first time in history, we have all three. This is a window of opportunity. If there's ever a battle to fight that's worth fighting for, this is the battle. A battle for equality for all. A battle for all of us to sit at the dinner table as equals, regardless of our ethnic group, regardless of our religion, regardless of our wealth, regardless of what we look like. I was at the table. I fought for that. But you know what? It's no fun when all of us not at the table. Because this is America. When I came into this country, Americans welcomed me with open arms. So when I'm at the table, even though I've made it there, it's no fun without you guys. I want each and every one of you at the dinner table with me, so that we have equal rights, so that we have fairness and justice for all to effectuate the words that we say on a regular basis. For the Constitution that we believe in, we must effectuate that, because there's no one thing that's more American than protecting the Constitution and effectuating the words that we resonate when we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm Kathy Chang. I stand for change. Do you want change? Get up, do what you need to do as a civic U.S. citizen, and get engaged. Let people know we need to vote. We need to vote correctly. And that's Democrat, folks. I'm Kathy Chang. Vote Change for Change. Thank you.